Good afternoon and welcome to the December Ordinary Council meeting. Item 1, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the peoples of the land which now comprise Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 2, privacy notice. This public meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It is also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. I do acknowledge and welcome people in the public gallery this afternoon. Item 3, Governance Principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in the agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9.2 of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as followed. Councillors are listed 1 to 9 on page 6 of the agenda. Item 4, apologies nil received. Item 5, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, do I have any conflicts this afternoon? No, councillors, I do have a conflict. Item 11.1. So I will leave the chair at that particular moment. Item 6, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any minutes of the meeting opposed? No. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I please have someone move that as a motion? Spinks.
Thank you. I'll move that the minutes of the 26th November 2024 council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
Can I have councillors second that motion, please? Councillor Eddy. Councillors, all in favour? Motion carried. Item 7, public question time nil received. Item 8, deputations and petition received. Councillors, before we deal with item 9.1, I'm going to change the order of business and bring forward the notice of motion that is on page 48 of the agenda, item 14.2. Notice of motion 14/2024 Australia Day. Councillors, there is a recommendation. Can I have someone put that forward as a motion?
Thanks, Mayor Sally. I'd like to move the notice of motion 14.2 as it reads on, as printed on page 49 of the agenda, 48 of the agenda.
Thank you, councillor. Someone can have a councillor second that motion, please. Councillor Schubert. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sally. First, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to deeply apologise for any distress this debate is causing and reinforce Greater Shepparton's commitment to improving outcomes for our valued Indigenous community. With good intentions, the last council took away Australia Day funding on January 26. Predictably, this was met with substantial backlash, with some towns choosing to forego council grants altogether. This motion will align the City of Shepparton with small towns and enable all Australia Day events to occur on January 26. As it stands, Shepparton would be the only locality that doesn't hold an Australia Day event on Jan 26 in 2025. As the City of Shepparton is the epicentre of this region, not following through on community expectations will likely inflame racial tension. Regardless of what may or may not have occurred in 1788, the fundamental principle of Australia Day always comes back to our national identity. A healed country would take the date of Australia Day as it stands, warts and all, reflect on the historical context and recognise how far we've progressed as a nation. An unhealed country will be defensive, perceive any celebration of colonialism as a threat and seek to erase it from history. Until we take strong, positive steps towards healing, changing the date is counterproductive. This may be an unpopular opinion, particularly among veterans who fought for our flag, but as much as I do love this country, I do not believe we are all equal. The truth is, there was never a concerted effort to bring Aboriginal people into mainstream Australia because historic government policy was to wipe them out altogether. The government took Aborigines from country and put them in missions like Karamagunda, which actively taught dependence on white people. They took children away from families, forbade Aboriginals from speaking their language or passing on family customs, and Aboriginal people were legally allowed to be shot if they killed a sheep for food. As recently as the 1980s, some pubs in Queensland had 70 years from Aboriginals nailed on walls behind the bar. Obviously, things have improved, but these aren't things you can just get over. White Australia policy told people erasing Aborigines was God's will and it was for the good of the country. Our great-great-great-great-grandparents believed in that legacy, and whether consciously or not, most of us remain complicit. The continuation of racism against Aborigines is so deeply ingrained in Australian culture that we can't admit the tough love approach isn't working. Even Aboriginal sympathisers are largely shunned by society. Surely in 2024 we can accept it's unrealistic to expect Aborigines to embrace a culture that wants to pretend they never existed. We are no longer a fledgling colony and have the capacity to treat everyone as potential assets instead of liabilities. Only then will Australia reach its full potential. There is a pervading stereotype of the destitute Aborigine, end quote, begging on dirt streets, but little is said about what came before. Rich cultural heritage, song lines, trade networks spanning hundreds of kilometres, complicated kinship clans, strategic water wells that were poisoned by white people, abundant food crops such as yams destroyed by pastoralists, and fishing holes ruined by stock animals. We live on a floodplain that would have provided abundant natural resources, so it's likely feelings of injustice and generational trauma are stronger here than other regions. It just doesn't make logical sense that this destitute Aborigine, end quote, is capable of sustaining the world's longest continuing culture. We must shake off our national amnesia and change the narrative to something much more positive. Council has done many things to create a welcoming environment for our fellow Aborigines. We have Welcome to Country, Indigenous flags, public street art, new statues, traditional smoking ceremonies, and the exceptional Monara Centre. However, these initiatives are likely to fail unless the broader community walk with us. We tell ourselves if we work hard, are honest, and treat people well, we can all get ahead in life. However, that's not always the case, and Aborigines have more barriers than most. Positive role models, clear career pathways, and access to financial capital are white constructs often taken for granted. Continuing work in those spaces is the way forward. Procurement incentives, Alga-Bonnier employment agreements, and the Prosperity Plan are far more effective in improving outcomes than changing the date of Australia Day. So, councillors, regardless of whether you agree with what I've said, I'll remind you we are only voting on the motion before us, which is to restore an Australia Day event in the city of Shepparton on January 26. It's my hope that a favourable vote will finally put the Australia Day matter to rest, and I thank you for indulging me in that history lesson. Thank you.
Councillor Summer.
Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. 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 Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Thank you. Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to me?
Yes, I would. Firstly, I'd like to welcome the Indigenous that are in the public gallery tonight. Thank you very much for your attendance. We must, in my opinion, continue to hold inclusive ceremonies and multicultural events that recognise those who now call Australia home. And it's important we hold it on one day, the 26th of January, rather than over different days. The confusion created by the last motion stroke decision by council created a disaster which culminated in some regions of council either not holding an Australia Day celebration or funding their own celebration due to non-funding by council if the event was held on the 26th of January 2024. This cannot happen ever again. I do believe we must all come together for a celebration of food, fun and festivity and to honour Shepparton's and the region's rich heritage, shared values and diverse community. The support of council is vital to encouraging participation in Australia Day so that every Australian has the opportunity to reflect, respect and celebrate, because we're all part of the story and we especially need to acknowledge Australia's Indigenous history and our local multiculturalism. On Australia Day, the 26th of January, we reflect on how we have risen above our brutal beginnings. We have overcome, survived, and we have thrived, because in Australia we believe in the unique value of each and every Australian as individuals, rather than seeing or indeed allowing ourselves to be defined solely through the identity prism of age, race, gender, ethnicity or religion. We sitting around this council table recognise that Australia Day can mean different things for different people, and it can be hard for some, which is why we want Australia Day to be the time we can recognise the contribution of all Australians, ranging from our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have been here for more than 65,000 years, to those who have lived here for generations and those who have come from all corners of the globe and to call our country home. I received an email the other day which I believe embraces many of my thoughts. Given Greater Shepparton's multicultural and Indigenous leadership and legacy, we believe that Australia Day is a day of acknowledgement, healing, reconciliation and moving forward together, and then celebrating this unity. I am comfortable to second the motion moved by Councillor Summer, as it removes any uncertainty on what is taking place on Australia Day across Greater Shepparton. Thank you, Mayor Saley.
Councillor Schubert. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. Nothing in this motion is necessary. The details of it all are unnecessary and actually just hide that we will be returning to the status quo and will have achieved nothing after almost 3 years of careful, thoughtful and considered work to move our community forward. But more than that, let's be clear, this motion does not prevent harm to the Aboriginal community, and it in fact sends us strongly backwards. The Aboriginal community have been very clear in telling us that the date of January 26 causes them harm and that they understand the risk that comes with change. So this motion essentially says, we hear you, but we know better. This motion does not protect the Aboriginal community. It only serves to protect us from having to be the leaders they need us to be. And the Aboriginal community have also been clear they see a future where we celebrate Australia Day together united. But this motion dismisses that vision, sends us backwards and removes any chance for us to work towards something better for our community. So let's talk about how we got here and why this decision is not about Australia Day, but is about the date of January 26, and why this decision can't be about a barbecue in a park in 2025, but needs to be about the way we recognise the history of our country and how our local community chooses to mourn and to celebrate into the future. 18 months ago, we separated council, the organisation, from the delivery of events, activities and funding on January 26, to have council, the organisation that serves all 70,000 people of this community, recognise that the date of January 26 is a day of mourning for many in our community, and we decided that the organisation would not use its money or resources to support celebrations on that date. However, we did not stop the community from celebrating whatever day on whatever date in whatever way they wanted. At no point did we cancel Australia Day. That argument is a blatantly obvious attempt to create a fake issue, to fracture our community and to undermine the purpose of what we were trying to achieve. And it worked. The previous council immediately buckled under the pressure, backflipped and reallocated money and reallowed the date of January 26 for funding. And so those with the loud voices got their day and their money back. But apparently that is not enough. It is not enough for the loud voices to just have what they want, but they must make sure the entire effort is undone to rip the last of it apart and to send a clear message that the colony will not be challenged. Because that's what this is. I am finally starting to understand that this is colonisation ongoing in real time in the 21st century. We might not give out permits to hunt Aboriginal people or constitutionally treat Aboriginal people as animals or sell and take Aboriginal children, which were all things we did in just the past 100 years in the living memory of people within our community. Modern colonisation may not be those things, but it is still death by 1,000 cuts as we use our power to make decision after decision that silences, dismisses and harms the first people of this land. Because 240 years ago, this land was not empty and the colony did not find and settle this land. This land was already cared for and nurtured by countless generations of people, and with sovereignty never ceded, this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And in 1788, when the colony arrived, those same people were slaughtered. Their culture and rights were stripped from them, and their land and their children were stolen. And that is what is mourned on January 26. That date of January 26 has been a day of mourning for the Aboriginal community since 1938. For almost 90 years, It has been a day for survivors to mourn the loss of loved ones, of culture, and of 60,000 years of existence taken by an invasion that is recognised as starting on that date. That is the Aboriginal history of colonisation, and that is the history of the colony Australia. January 26 is not a date to celebrate. We would never celebrate on other days of loss, on Anzac Day or on Remembrance Day, and we should not celebrate on the day of mourning. And as councillors of local government, the modern version of the colonial system, sitting at this table, we have the power to choose. Choose to protect the comfort of the colony or to hear and heal the pain of the first peoples of this land. Today, we will either willingly participate in ongoing colonisation, or we will respect and listen to the voices of the Aboriginal people who have asked us to change. And I will listen to them. I will do it because I love this country and I believe we can change. I embrace the many different and diverse people who call it home. I acknowledge the brutal history we are built on, and I recognise my part in working towards reconciliation. And I believe in a future where we move beyond the colony and we walk forward side by side, where we can create an Australia that all of us can want to celebrate, because we are all Australians. But right now, Australia is not for all of us. This is the shared history of our country, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. And until we can face this knowledge with courage, with truth, and with a will to do things differently, we will continue to inflict harm on our fellow Australians. And this motion perpetuates that harm and continues to exclude, dismiss, and ignore the voices of Aboriginal people and of the many non-Aboriginal people who stand with them. This motion is not necessary. It causes more harm and it does not work towards a better future for our country and our community, and so I will not support it.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak?
The fabric of our society has been torn by events of the distant and recent past. But this brings opportunity. Now is the time to call on leaders of all backgrounds in our community. We need our best weavers, our best knitters, our best communicators, our best yarners to start to heal the rich tapestry that is Shepparton and the Goulburn Valley. With open eyes, open ears, and open hearts, we can walk together on this journey. I walk with Fern, I walk with Sam, I walk with Council, I walk with William Cooper, and I walk with Sir Doug Nicholls.
Councillor Wickham. Councillors, is there anyone else that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saley. We received over the last week or so a number of emails that have come through from various people. Very encouraging to see a lot of the leaders in the Indigenous community put that forward, which we haven't heard from in the past. Okay, I'll try. Thank you, Di. One of the emails that I did receive from one of the leaders in the Indigenous community, and he put it very bluntly, was there is a better way. That there is a better way. And he said it's a community. We have an opportunity to embrace a new regional identity, one that reflects our shared values, acknowledges our history, and unites us all. And I think that what the previous council's intent was very much to do that. And when we sat down originally, and the number that are here in the audience as well, and even around this table, that we sat in a yarning circle with Indigenous representation and with Australia Day committees and tried to forge a way forward to make it unique for this region, but also one that we can come in harmony together. And then subsequently, we put forward a number of motions that we all know about. So much so that last Australia Day, we had the disjointed Australia Day celebrations, whether it be on the 26th, 27th or 28th. It was all over the place. I did attend all of those, whether it be in Dookie, Mooroopna, Murchison, Shepparton, Tatura, as well as the Clithy Band morning service. and all very poignant, all very respectful. The feedback that I received after that and during that day, because I wanted to make sure that I did get across the whole region and get a feel. And the feedback is that we still didn't get it right. We did a good job, but we still didn't get it right. Henceforth, the notice of motions that were then put forward and the consequential past recommendations that have gone forward in regards to that. So what we really wanted was that each community to be able to decide on what day that they would like. If it was the 26th, each community decided that it wasn't the organisation, that it was each community. The stumbling block as well was that Shepparton didn't have an Australia Day committee. And I'd like to ask through the Mayor, if I can, to the CEO, that what we did try and put in place, and I did put forward a recommendation that didn't get up, but we had a foreshadowed one. Thank you, Councillor Spinks, to try and get it up for this year, coming Australia Day. So through the chair, of course, and to the CEO, you know, will we continue to work with the Greater Shepparton community in order to re-establish a Shepparton Australia Day committee, organisational point of view?
I'll just get a point of clarification. Assuming we need to deliver on the recommendation that is voted on, and we have to follow that direction.
Just a point of clarification, if I may, it does say we align with small towns and that does include committee.
I want to get that interpretation, because if not, then I'll want to propose an alteration. Can that be clearly outlined, whether this motion gives clear direction that if supported, the continuation of wanting to establish a Shepparton Australia Day committee would continue?
We're just seeking around, can we have that focus, knowing that it's not actually articulated in the actual recommendation that's being considered.
As far as staff liaison with the community to establish a committee, that can still happen as an operational.
As an
So that's clear?
operational outcome.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for that. Look, I think there is a better way, and a very proud Yorta man said to me less than an hour ago, walk with us. And I hope we can. I still hope that we can do that. I do see a day where we can celebrate as a nation here in the Golden Valley, that we can have a welcome to country on a given day, that we can have our citizenship ceremonies on that day, welcoming migrants from overseas, but not only receive their citizenship certificate, but a welcome to the Yorta country as well. To celebrate together what a magnificent multicultural country that we have, and that we live and all breathe in here together. I still hope we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brody. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Truffle.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Sally. I'd like to say that, you know, I grew up in Shepparton at Gary Street, and in my time I was never really exposed to some of the things we're talking about today. So I went to school with the Atkinsons and the Bamblets and all those guys down there, but it was never something that really came up. So my view of Australia Day was a day of celebration for all. So forgive me if I missed something along the line, which I have in probably my growing up in Shepparton, in my circles. But thank the people coming along today to share their view, and in the park today. But yeah, so that's my view on things. I was also at the 400th anniversary of the Dutch landing on Melville Island. I spent 12 months on Melville Island fishing up through that area of the world, and I take the Aboriginal community as a fantastic community. But like I say, I haven't been exposed to all this thing in my circles growing up. So that's my view on what's going on today.
Thank you, Councillor Truffle. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Before I go to Councillor Summers' right of reply, I'd like to make some comments and obviously firstly acknowledge the traditional owners that are in the room here today and all the emails and letters that I've received and phone calls over the course of the last week, and also this afternoon's meeting. I appreciate the time you afforded us to listen to you and engage in that conversation this afternoon. there's a lot that's been said, and I may repeat a number of the things that have been mentioned around the table here today, and we've obviously had one councillor speak against the motion. And I guess from my personal observation of what was put forward with the notice of motion, and when we often get a notice of motion, it's provided to us through the CEO, and we take it for what it is, and it makes it to the council meeting. And the question, because I have been on the journey to date, and Councillor Brophy's obviously explained what's taken place to where we are today, is that the real intent, the priority was to make sure that Shepparton in isolation would have a committee established like our surrounding towns would. Council made the decision in August this year, and I may be misquoting the date, the month I should say, but it was July or August, where we would re-establish funding for the Australia Day events, and that could take place on the 26th of January. We also wanted to re-establish the Shepparton Australia Day Committee, which was obviously dissolved when council made a decision not to proceed with celebrating Australia Day on the 26th of January. It was noted at that meeting that time wouldn't be on the council side to try and establish an Australia Day Committee, and I'll be honest with you, the uptake was limited from community organisation groups, Rotaries alike, as an example, who wanted or would have needed to put their hand up. The small towns have a different form of operation. They have community groups. Taktura, Murchison, Arcadia, they have different community groups that operate to facilitate these type of events. This information was provided to us on basically the eve of caretaker period, so nothing more or nothing less could have been done at that particular point to resolve what would happen in Shepparton in particular. We return as elected representatives, and clearly a motion here is in front of us to establish a Shepparton Australia Day celebration. As it's been noted, and through this whole process, even before speaking or engaging in any conversations with anyone, emails, phone calls and other forms of communication, my personal priority has always been that council would facilitate an Australia Day event, if that's what is supported today, while we also continue to work to establish an Australia Day committee, which was always in place, that would facilitate an event here if that's what was be chosen to be done at that particular time. That has obviously been backed up here today through that question from Councillor Brophy to our CEO. That has to be the priority to move forward, that if we are wanting to realign Shepparton, that we need that operational component to also sit with it as well.
Point of clarification. This motion proposes that the Australia Day Awards and the citizenship ceremonies are also held on January 26th. Can a community group do those events, or will that be committing council, the organisation, to holding those events on January 26th?
The citizenship ceremonies needs to be organised and delivered by council. It doesn't get, there's not an opportunity for a community group to actually facilitate that particular activity. And sorry, Sam, sorry.
And the community awards, the Australia Day Awards.
Can that be organised by a community group?
Yes.
I would suggest that we could explore that, but traditionally it has been coordinated by the organisation.
Yes. So we will be committing those to be returning to January 26th, being celebrated by the organisation.
According to this notice of motion, yes.
Thank you.
So as it's been noted, the intent is to get a community group who is able to establish a Shepparton Australia Day committee, host an Australia Day event if they choose to on the 26th of January, if they choose to facilitate that, and obviously proceed to coordinate events as it's been proposed with surrounding towns. Very, very complex matter, highly sensitive, and there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say to justify or make peace with anyone in the room here today. I truly appreciate the time that's afforded to me personally and our councillors in particular over the last week and this afternoon. But one of the challenges that we face here today is a national gazetted day being the 26th of January, and council in a position to determine whether we do or don't support community groups for the 26th of January. I'll leave it at that. No other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Otherwise, I'll go right or reply. Councillor Summer.
Can I just say one word?
Sorry.
Maybe I might get out first, like I was out there. I just want to ask a comment question.
No, you don't.
Sorry, Uncle Bobby, we can't take questions from the floor. I apologise. Councillor Summer.
Respect.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. Look, in politics, timing is important, and we made changes to Australia Day immediately after a failed referendum. So it's all well and good to say that reinstating the day will not protect people from harm, but I and many others have seen some appalling behaviour since those changes were made. Voice to Parliament was a simple step intended to unite, not divide Australians, but unfortunately humans have a tendency to believe political rhetoric, and many took the result as a mandate for abject racism. That's what's being reflected in the broader political climate of Australia right now, and I believe changing Australia Day across Victoria is compounding the problem and doing more harm than good. Recently, a ratepayer complained about the word graffiti, the word respect graffitied on the Maribyrnong skate park. Instead of seeing it as a cry for help, he implied that no Aborigine is deserving of respect. And I wonder, how can anyone get ahead when they're racially profiled and judged that way as a single group? There's always exceptions, but that doesn't reflect reality for most. Local rapper Briggs said it best in his song Bad Apples. What if before you even had a dream, you were crushed? Such is the impact of racism. Another ratepayer told me she felt inferior having the Aboriginal flag flying side by side with our own. It took a lot of reflection for me to realise she didn't mean inferior. What she meant was she no longer felt superior. Truth is, equality only applies to Aborigines if you look and behave like white people, ignoring all that came before. Until Australians make space for our past, Aborigines will continue to be outsiders on the only land they've ever known. And it's not a celebration for all. It's not a requirement to be a celebration. The argument that everyone will be willing to celebrate on a different day is lovely, but I believe that's flawed. Any Australia Day marks the beginning of colonisation, no matter what the day, much like Thanksgiving discussions in America. Australia Day has already been changed a number of times, but we've held that date for 30 years, since 1994. 30 years is a long time, considering we're such a young country, with traditions yet to be honed. If we bow to pressure now, we'll be changing the date for the next 100 years with nothing achieved. To put forward an analogy, large pockets of people experience grief, loneliness and pain during Christmas. And going off this logic, are we going to cancel that too? There is no requirement to celebrate on January 26. People can mark it however they like. We are a free country. Eventually, I do believe that date will be more reflective, but that sort of progression cannot be forced. Yes, January 26 is a day of mourning. It's also the day the nationality and citizenship was established in 1949. Before the Act, all Australians were British subjects or Indigenous. There was no legal concept of Australian citizenship, and I don't believe there was malice in making Australia Day January 26. They were so ignorant back then, they probably didn't even know about the day of mourning. In terms of consultation...
Sorry, Councillor Summer, I do have to pull you up. So,
about 6 minutes already.
3 minutes.
It's too long for you, though.
3 minutes.
So,
Okay, thank you. Okay, councillors, we'll now...
playing this.
Sorry, Councillor Summer. We will now go to the vote. Councillors, all those in favour? Against? Motion carried.
Division.
Councillors, all those in favour? Councillor Brophy, Councillor Schubert, Councillor Eddy, Councillor Wickham, Councillor Summer, Councillor Akers, Councillor Truffle, Councillor Sali. Against? Councillor Spinks. Motion carried. Thank you, councillors.
Nationally.
And it's Aboriginal. Yes. I really want to talk. Shame on all of you. Thank you, sir.
Wrong word again.
Yes, Ali.
Councillors, I might just adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes, if that's right. We'll just gather our thoughts and we'll resume in 10 minutes. Welcome back. Item 9.1, councillors, on page 8 of the agenda. 9.1, contract number 2390, data centre computer and storage refresh. There is a recommendation. Can I have a council put that forward as a motion, please?
Happy to move, Mayor Sarley.
Thank you, councillor Akers. If you don't mind, if you would like to read out what your...
Council award contract number 2390, data centre computer and storage refresh to Logicalis Australia Proprietary Limited for the lump sum of $1,340,628, and I suppose we'll give them the 2 cents, including GST.
For the sake of the motion, it is important to read out every dollar and cent. So thank you, councillor Akers. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Ready. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Ms. Ali. This contract is for works associated obviously with the data centre computer and storage refresh. Our current data centre hardware has reached the end of its useful life, and the support contracts for both hardware and software are also nearing expiration. The latest security patches and operating systems are incompatible with our ageing infrastructure, exposing us to potential vulnerabilities. Additionally, the risk of hardware failure is increasing as the equipment continues to age. This procurement aims to replace the existing hardware with equivalent products while also exploring opportunities to consolidate hardware in certain areas. The new hardware will be more modern, capable and able to support the latest security hardening requirements, including security patching. We requested quotations. We got no local submissions and one non-regional, which was Logicalis Australia Proprietary Limited. They quote met the requirements set out in the contract, and the evaluation panel has recommended the award Logicalis Australia Proprietary Limited with the lump sum price of $1,340,628.02, including GST.
Good on councillor Akers. Councillor Eddy, would you like to speak to the motion? Good, thank you. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? No, councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we go to page 12 of the agenda, item 9.2, contracts awarded under delegation, November 2024. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Trelfall.
Yep, I'd like to put the motion forward, recommended on page 12, 13 and 14. The motion reads that the council note the contracts awarded under delegation pursuant to the formal procurement procedure for the reporting period, and number 2, note the request for tender advertising but not yet awarded. So
Councillor Trelfall, that's right, move that. I'll now go and ask for a second. Can I have the councillor to second that motion?
I'll second that motion, Ms. Sarley.
Councillor Brophy. Yep. Councillor Trelfall, would you like to speak to that motion?
Yes, yes. I'll just run through a couple of those as they're pretty important upgrades within the community. There's design and construction playground of shade sails on 9 sites, awarded to Crow Industries for $287,336.50. Guardrail upgrade works, Bridge Road, Cosgrove South. Waratah Construction, $108,962.04. Major culvert renewal, Burnside, Gilliston Road, Merrigham, $442,456.27. Orion Excavations, Skate Park Lighting, Victoria Park, Shepparton, $97,790. Waters Electrical, multi-use change room facility at Vizzy Stadium, Shepparton, $665,500, JMD. And also on page 13 and 14, I won't read them out because these are requests for tender advertised but not yet awarded.
Thank you, Councillor Trelfall. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Just very briefly, as mentioned by Councillor Trelfall, one thing people think I have difficulty in saying is shade sales. And so very happy to see that there are not, I said shade sales, and it's 9 sites. Basically equates to over $30,000 per shade sale. And so that's fantastic, particularly in and around our playgrounds, and that's for design and construction. There were a couple of queries, and people sort of asked me in terms of contract being awarded to the multi-purpose change rooms at Busy Stadium, which is obviously on Education Department's land. We've also got, tendering under contract in regards to lighting around the Wanganui Oval, and of course in and around final construction of irrigation in and around that same oval. And what I can say there, it forms part of our sporting precinct. It's really at the end of that. We know that Wanganui Park Secondary College has now moved on, and that's being redesigned in that area, and that certainly fits in beautifully with our sporting precinct, and that we will use it, and we will use not only the oval, but we've already used the Visy Centre in regards to basketball and other particular things there. And very pleased to see that the contract being sent out in regards to the Katandra West Hall. I could spend an hour on that one, but I've only got a couple of minutes, so thank you.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillors like to speak for the motion? No. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 16 of the agenda, item 9.3, S5, instrument of delegation by council to the Chief Executive Officer. There is a recommendation. Can I have the councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'd like to move the recommendation as a motion on page 16 on the agenda as it reads.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, this is a bit of housekeeping that comes up from time to time. It would be impossible for councillors to take ownership of every decision this very large organisation has made, and it would so we delegate to the Chief Executive Officer to delegate to other people. Otherwise, we'd be here all week and we still wouldn't get through every item. So fully supportive of what's recommended.
Okay, thank you, councillor Summer. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, nothing further to add.
Great. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Okay, councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 19, item 9.4, S6, instrument of delegation by council to members of council staff. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'll move the recommendation as a motion as printed on page 19 of the agenda.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Spinks. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sali. Much the same as the last motion. This is another delegation instrument and it applies to the members of the council staff.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, nothing further to add.
Thank you. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, we go to page 22 of the agenda, item 9.5, S18, instrument of sub-delegation, Environment Protection Act 2017. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I'll move the recommendation as a motion as printed on page 22 of the agenda.
Very good. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
Further Hatcher.
Councillor
Second
Spinks.
that motion.
I advise governance that it is three separate motions that will be.
Yeah.
Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Only to say possibly we should condense these three items into one in future.
Idea. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, nothing to add.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Okay. Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 25 of the agenda, item 9.6, 2025 council meeting schedule. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sali. I put forward the following recommendation: that one, that council resolves that scheduled council meetings for 2025 continue to be held at 3 p.m. On the fourth Tuesday of each month at 70 to 90 Welsford Street, Shepparton, and that no scheduled council meeting be held in January 2025, and that the scheduled council meeting cycle be resumed on the 25th of February 2025. Two of the recommendation is that council notes that this meeting schedule may be amended by council resolution at any time.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Is there a councillor that would like to second that motion? Councillor Eddy. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, look, thank you, Mayor Sali. Look, it's pretty much state of play, because this is what we've currently got in process at the moment in regards to the fourth Tuesday of each month. Also commencing at 3 p.m. We certainly try to look to accommodate not only the the public, but also the councillors and council staff too. So we go well into the evening and we make it a friendly time. I think given the fact now that most of the council meetings are live streamed, and I think that makes it a lot easier over the last few years, particularly during COVID, that we were able to continue with our meetings. Therefore, people don't need to try and come into town to see the meeting. They can watch it and replay it at any time that they want to see their great moments that they might see throughout the meeting. There's certainly adequate notice that is always given out to it. And I do note that it can be changed at any time, and we note that the meetings are held in Shepparton. But, I mean, there's always been talk, is there a visitation to other places around our municipality? Look, I've done that in previous councils, gone out to other areas within our municipality, and that there are an issue around logistics, and I know that the ones that I've attended, there's been really minimal public attendance. So what we've got there is currently at the moment, and I'm very happy with that.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Eddie, would you like to speak to the motion?
Dad, thank you.
Good. Councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? No councillors, we'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried unopposed. Just before I go to item 9.7, I'd like to welcome former councillor Jeff Dobson in the gallery as well. Great to see you. Page 28, item 9.7, September 2024, Q1 forecast review. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Akers.
Happy to move that council endorse the 24-25 Q1 financial review.
I'll get you to just do that again and just forecast review as attached. So the recommendation, I'll just get you to read that out, sorry, word for word.
Council endorse the 24-25 Q1 forecast review as attached.
Thank you, Councillor Akers. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Spink.
That motion?
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Saley. It's a pretty good financial position after the first quarter. This reflects our financial performance for 24-25, and it was adopted as at the end of September. It was adopted at the June meeting. A bit of operating position. Year-to-date, actual adjusted underlying results, a surplus of 80.48 million, which is 3.92 million, 5% greater than the year-to-date adopted budget, and the year-to-date position is influenced by the generation of rates at the start of the financial year. And as the financial year progresses, the expenditure has occurred, Council is projecting a full-year adjusted underlying deficit of 5.34 million. The Q1 forecast review adjusted underlying result has improved by 1.51 million since the 24-25 adopted budget and is projected to be a deficit of 5.34 million. The favourable movements probably come as a result of, in part or largely, by a 2.52 million increase in monetary contributions due to the timing of insurance claims and contributions relating to property damaged in the October 22 floods event and the March 23 storm event. And this revenue, of course, is non-recurrent. And there's a 796,000 increase in our income, mostly due to higher investment yields and from a large financial base. And also from that resulted from a early receipt of federal assistance grants in July and carryover. Just one other point, capital works expenditures on track compared to budget. We've got Council's projected full-year capital expenditure of 71.37 million, which is 1.4 million increase compared to the budget that was adopted. But I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. What I will say is that in the previous council, I'd like to thank Councillor Dobson and Councillor Abdullah, who so diligently and thoughtfully would move the financial motions each sitting. I thank Councillor Akers for stepping in for this particular one. I do accept that being able to explain the financials in a meeting is not one of my strengths and is not something I'm particularly eloquent at, but I applaud anyone who can do that. And what I do want to say is that the Q1 forecast review is a part of the quarterly reports that come back to us. We keep a very close eye over the financials of the organisation. We have monthly updates and we do keep an eye each quarter to see how our budget is going compared to how we thought it would, and to make sure that we are adapting with changing financial factors along the way. So happy that we are looking at a positive update and review in this first quarter, and mindful that we'll have our second quarter review in the new year. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 32 of the agenda, item 10.1, Heritage Advisory Committee Community Member Appointment. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
I'll do that, Mayor.
Schubert.
The recommendation on page 32, I'd like to move that the council appoint Cynthia Subramanian as a community representative to the Greater Shepparton Heritage Advisory Committee for a term commencing on 1st of February 2025 and concluding on the 1st of December 2025.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Summer. Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to the motion?
I know, look, I think this is great. It's really good that council has had the Heritage Advisory Committee operating since the 17th of January 2012, so it certainly lasted the distance. That talks to me about relevance and need, etc., which is great. There was 5 community representative positions which are currently filled, and 1 remained vacant. It no longer remains vacant because Cynthia will be taking that remaining vacant position. So, good job.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor Sarley. This is my absolute favourite committees, and I'm really excited to get back into it next year. I would love to welcome Cynthia into the group. It's good to have some fresh eyes. She's quite young, whereas many of the members are probably older than I am, so it's nice to get that succession planning from young people who are interested in heritage. Even though it does say that all the positions are filled, that doesn't necessarily mean we will say no as a council if anybody else with a wealth of heritage knowledge would like to put their hand up. So yes, I welcome her and look forward to her contribution.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? No, councillors, we will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, I have a conflict on the next item, 11.1 on page 37. I will allow.
Thank you. We come to item number 11.1 on page 37, which is the contract number 2411, design and construct Margaret Street stormwater pump station upgrade in Tatura. Could I please have a councillor move that motion? Councillor Schubert.
The recommendation on page 37, I would like to move that the council, 1, award contract number 2411, design and construct Margaret Street stormwater pump station upgrade to tenderer B for the lump sum price of $2,218,971.7, including GST. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to execute such documents as are necessary to give effect to this resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Schubert. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Reddy. Second that motion?
Second it.
Councillor Schubert.
Yes, look, I went and viewed this, the pump, the stormwater pump station. I went and viewed that over the weekend, and certainly it does need, and I'm very pleased to see the contract does talk about the general tidy up of the fencing and goodness knows what else. It's in dire need, principally due to the electrical non-compliance and failures of the current infrastructure systems. Greater Shepparton requires to upgrade the Margaret Street pump station in Tatura. The Margaret Street pump station is the most critical stormwater asset in Tatura, servicing approximately 90% of Tatura Township stormwater needs. So very, very good that we're doing something about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schubert. Councillor Eddy, would you like to speak to the motion?
This is an upgrade that I believe is desperately needed for Tatura. It's great to see it's finally getting done.
Thank you very much. Would anybody like to speak against the recommendation? Anybody would like to speak for the recommendation? No one? Okay. Go to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. I'll now vacate the chair and ask for Mayor Sally to be returned.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillors, page 44, item 12, documents for signing and sealing received. Page 45, 13.1.1, councillor activities, November 2024. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I put forward that the recommendation that the council receive and note the summary of the councillors' community interactions and informal meetings of councillors.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to pick out two particular activities I'd like to mention that happened in the preceding month. One was the St George's Road Food Festival, which is a fantastic festival, and it really does make what is unique and welcoming about in regional Victoria very special for Shepparton. And I think that we really stand out when we put on these particular festivals. We should be doing more festivals. I love the festivals. The other one I'd like to make a big shout out here, went along to the performance of Disney Aladdin Jr. by Creating Drama. This is the brainchild of Helen Janke and her entourage, the ones that help so many adults performing and give them an unbelievable experience on stage. And it's, and the wonderful performance that there is. It's probably one of the most heartwarming and highlights of the year that I attended. So thank you, Helen, and all those performers.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm going to say it's not a particularly long list compared to what we're going to get into, so prepare yourselves. But the breadth and quality of the events that we went to in that particular month, in just our first couple of weeks, were a wonderful start to the new council term. Really exciting events to go along to. So thank you for inviting us, and I look forward to more events. We'll find out what this month's events are next month, and it's very exciting.
Very good. Thank you, councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Right, councillors, we will go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 47, item 14.1, notice of motion 13/2024, hard copy resources. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'll move that the council, one, note this motion will come into effect on the date it is carried and will remain in force until this motion is revoked. Two, that hard copy resources be provided to councillors in a timely manner, including but not limited to council meetings, council briefings, relevant committee meetings, the councillor newsletter and MAV training opportunities. Three, note a hard copy of the Local Government Act 2020 will be placed in the councillor's suite.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Councillor, second that motion, please.
Second that motion.
Councillor Eddy. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Mayor Sally, I'd like to propose an alteration to the motion.
What would that be, councillor?
I would like to change point 2 to say that on request, hard copy resources be provided to councillors, etc., etc.
Okay, for that to be upheld, I need the approval from the mover and the seconder. Councillor Summer, do you approve of that alteration?
Do.
Councillor Eddy? Thank you. So do you want to just read that out again? Sorry, councillor Spinks, just so our governance team can just clearly, unless you've already got that. Or do you mind just reading it out again? If that's just what the alteration.
That I'm altering?
The alteration, yeah.
Okay, so point 2 will now read that on request, hard copy resources be provided to councillors in a timely manner, including but not limited to council meetings, council briefings, relevant committee meetings, the councillor newsletter and MAV training opportunities.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. That's been accepted. So we'll continue on, which was asking councillor Summer to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Sally, and thank you, councillor Spinks. I wouldn't want to be a nuisance and plug everybody's pigeonhole up with hard copies if it wasn't required. I think it's a bit of a shame that I need to move this as a norm because access to hard copies on request should be a matter of course. The council must provide resources to enable councillors to perform our role. And I'd wager most people at this table perform better if we could read off paper instead of a screen. I'm not young anymore, my eyesight isn't great, and I really struggle to read fine print on a screen without magnification. I've got to scroll back and forward until I can get the whole sentence. It's very distracting. So I'm very old school. I prefer holding paper when I study. It just feels more tangible. It allows me to take more ownership of the content. I can feel the paper between my fingers. I can make notes that won't disappear the next time I log in. I can mark the pages I want to go back to. So requirements for confidentiality are the same whether we have hard copy items or not. I'm well aware of my confidentiality requirements under the Act, and that should be enough. On record, I'd be happy to accept electronic resources for confidential items if that will help reassure the organisation, but I am not letting go of needing hard copy resources for briefings and meetings. For the sake of anyone over the age of 45, I implore councillors to please vote in favour of this motion.
Exempt. Councillor Eddie, would you like to speak to the motion? And Councillor Spence.
I've lost my train of thought now. I too enjoy a good hard copy from time to time. Only due to my absolute lack of computer skills. So I'll leave it at that.
Say no more. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thanks. That's a good one. Certainly no disrespect to the mover of this notice of motion. I always applaud notices of motions that come forward, so thank you. I think look, I just looked at it and I thought, firstly, the first point 1 being that it'll come into effect at a certain date. I think any motion that's been put forward and voted on comes into effect pretty much immediately, unless you specify another date, and then it'll stay in place, and so it doesn't need to be revoked. That was just my viewpoint on point 1. Look, I thought a bit about it, and I think look, we are provided with the tools that we can perform our roles. I mean, we're given a mobile phone, we were given an iPad, they've taken that off us now, but a laptop, and you know that gives me all the information I need. Look, I'm a pretty tactile sort of guy as well, so I do like paper. But given the volumes and sometimes, you know, and I know it is as requested, but you know, look, when I look at it, you've got volumes and volumes. Sometimes at the briefing notes and attachments, over 500 pages in each one, and as well as all of the other documentation that's sort of been asked for that's in there. You know, they're still available online. All those documents we can find, whether it's the Local Government Act, it's pretty easy to find there. I'm certainly happy to help Councillor Eddie through the next couple of months to get through to there. Look, we do receive monthly agendas in hard copies, and for me, just personally, that's sufficient enough for me.
Very good, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion?
Thank you.
Councillor Schubert.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to Councillor Summers' sort of motion. I've just, for the last hour, my computer has been off and I've been extremely comfortable just reading the hard print. So I'm not a technical guru, but I do understand IT systems and everything else. It says on request, and I completely and utterly endorse Councillor Summers' motion.
Very good, Councillor Schubert. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak for or against the motion?
For.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Sally. Yeah, like the word inclusion as far as on request. That was a good move, I thought. And thanks very much to your talk. I noticed you brought it on paper and didn't read it off. Is that right?
You read it off the screen.
Oh, that's right.
My reply will be on paper.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Yeah, Councillor Spinks.
For the motion. Ultimately, it's not really about age or anything like that. It's about making sure that each individual councillor has the ways to access the information that makes sense for them. I added on request because I don't particularly feel the need for paper documents, but if Councillor Summer feels so strongly about this supporting her ability to do this role, then that she needed to bring it as a notice of motion to a council meeting, I am all for supporting each of us being able to do this role completely with the support and the resources that we individually need. So happy to support this, but on request, so we don't all get all the paperwork. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion, either for or against? I will speak against the motion.
Oh.
So
I'm surprised.
I know the answer to this, but I'm going to seek clarification anyway. Does each councillor receive, does each councillor receive a hard copy OCM agenda?
Yes, they do.
Thank you. Now, that is the one thing that I was more concerned about that every councillor should have the ability to have a hard copy OCM agenda, which we do. Yes, there needs to be requirements to cater for those that require a hard copy, but I believe everyone sitting around the table has the ability to utilise the devices in front of us, and the most important hard copy is the OCM agenda. Our responsibility is to employ a CEO to create and drive efficiencies in the organisation. And the efficiency is not having someone collate briefing documents that at times exceed 500 pages, Audit and Risk Committee agenda items with attachments that exceed 500 pages, briefing agendas, attachments, and the list goes on. I think this is arguably one of the most inefficient processes that we're going to include, on the basis that on request, and rightly so, if you want that, that will be requested and if it gets up. But I don't want to walk into an organisation and have a CEO delegating to staff to go and put 500-page agendas together. You know, whether to keep them. What do you want to keep them for? They're all online, and the most important agenda is the OCM agenda. So I just find this as we're going to take council resources and put them in a place of stapling agendas together day after day, week after week, so they can become a collector's item. I don't know. I'm against this one. Really inefficient, really inefficient. It's worked well to date. I hope the councillors can see my point and vote against this motion. Nothing else, Councillor Summer, closing comment? Right or wrong?
Yeah, I love a right of.
Oh, very good.
The only thing I agree with between yourself and Councillor Brophy is that point one is absolutely superfluous, which is what I was intending to convey in the wording, because it came back to me as being vague for not having a date in the first place. So that was my intention there. And I'm just so glad that Councillor Brophy is okay with all the electronic things, but that does show a lack of respect for his fellow councillors who have been complaining about not having hard copies for many years now. It's that I'm okay, thanks, Jack attitude that makes people feel excluded and not heard. So I'm glad you're cleverer than me, but I am not impressed by you voting against something that will allow me to do my job better. The word efficiency is interesting because that is up to interpretation. If you're talking about saving money from a couple of sheets of paper, perhaps it's more efficient. But if you're talking about me using my time to actually absorb something, write something down on paper and convey it at a meeting, then I would say it's way more efficient for me to have the hard copies. Yes, we get the OCM, but that's always at the last minute and it doesn't include attachments. When I began on council, we had hard copies. So you're all showing your age here. There were 500 pages delivered to our houses during the Andrew Fairley Avenue debate. That's how much that's how much importance was put on making sure that we had our resources in front of us. Things get missed online. Things don't necessarily get opened online. It's not efficient at all, if you ask me. So 9 councillors with probably an uptake of 2 or 3 will not kill the planet. And it certainly will not break this council if they have to staple a couple together. So I maintain my position.
Very good. Councillor Summer. Councillors, if there's nothing else, we'll go to vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Looking that up right?
Was it 5-4?
5-4. Okay, councillors, we will go over the page. We've obviously dealt with item 14. Item 15, urgent business not included on the agenda. Councillors, is there any urgent business that has arisen since the finalisation of the agenda? No. Item 16, close of meeting, which we'll do at 4:18 p.m. Thank you, councillors.